This interview was recorded at the end of February 2020. It's only a few months ago, but it feels like ages in COVID-19 timescales. I would like to thank my long-suffering husband, Donnie, as well as Johan Heinemann for the videography, and then our friend Chris Swart who accompanied us. We had a fantastic day. We did the Swartberg Pass, and the highlight was having lunch and interviewing Aron. I hope we'll see you again, Aron, on another Karoo expedition.
This is Tasha Duplessis for Do It, Critical Thinking Skills channel. We are here in Prins Albert today doing an interview with Aron Ra. Aron is a YouTuber from Arizona?
Texas. I was born in Arizona, but I live in Texas.
Close enough, yeah. And he's here on a geological excursion.
Paleontological
expedition with the University of Wits.
University of Witwatersrand.
That's right. And we've traveled from Worcester to interview Aron mainly about his impressions of South Africa, since it's his first visit.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
And
it's my first visit to the continent.
To the
anywhere.
continent.
I've wanted to come to Kenya. I've wanted to visit a couple of countries for activist reasons. But this one's a scientific venture, and I'm very excited to be here.
Well, we're very happy to be here as well. We traveled from Worcester, where Doen is based. Thank you so much. The first question that I'm going to ask, short answer please. I grew up being taught to be afraid of men with long hair. They were typically associated with biker gangs. So I want to ask you, has any child except your own ever burst into tears at the sight of you?
Not ever. However, I am in a biker gang. All right. I remember when I was a young man that it was the stereotype that if you had a Harley Davidson, you also had a criminal record. But that was in the 70s, and things have significantly changed. And now, if you have a Harley Davidson, you have stocks, bonds, and a serious bank account.
Yeah. And if you're in South Africa, you are probably also a member of the some Pentecostal church, and you raise funds towards children's charities.
Things of that sort, yes.
Which is a fantastic thing, in my opinion. All right. Would you please tell us, why are you in South Africa?
The University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg contacted me saying that their paleontology department was actually, their paleontology department were fans of my channel, which I was very stoked to hear. As a science activist and advocate, it's enormously important to me, and how do I put this? The word is not satisfying. What am I looking for? I'm humbled and honored to be accepted as an associate of the people that I'm with on this expedition. There's 9 other guys on this expedition, and they're all the top in their field. They're all advanced scholars, and it's, as I said, both an honor and humbling experience to be accepted by people who are the very best that you can get in that particular area.
And I would just like to say, I studied at Northwest University. I did a literature degree, but I am immensely proud of Wits University as a South African. Homo naledi was discovered by an American scientist at Wits University. So, viva South Africa, cradle of humankind.
Which brings me to a question. I know it's your interview to me, but it brings me to a question I have of you. This country has such a wealth of things that you really should be proud of as far as paleontology goes. You have the Karoo, which is the largest repertoire of all of the world's knowledge on the Permian period. We have Permian exposure in Texas and also in Russia, but the bulk of what we know of the species from that period comes from this country. And you have the cradle of humanity. You have Homo naledi. You have so much to be proud of as far as paleontology and the study of evolution goes, yet your country shies away from teaching students what they should be most proud of.
I don't know why that is, and I hope in some small way that this interview and interactions like these and what we are trying to do at Dun can change that. There are people who regard Africa as a backwards country, and there are those who say that whites don't belong here. I believe that we are all human, and that as far as I understand the scientific evidence, humanity as we know it originated on this continent before it was Africa maybe. And I think as Africans and South Africans, we should be proud of that, and we should start to educate our people and the world on what we need to be proud of. And it's so much more than Nelson Mandela, of who we are immensely proud. But there's so much more. It runs so much deeper. So I'm hoping to change that. I don't know why it hasn't changed. Maybe we had too many political struggles to fight. Maybe now is the time to take it to the next level. So let's hope. My next question is, please keep it to 3 words. What 3 words would you use to describe your experience of rural South Africa? We'll give you time to think, Aron.
I'm trying to figure out 3. Arduous is the only word that I can come up with. When I got to Johannesburg, I know you said just 3. Do you want me to stop?
Well.
Are we talking about Johannesburg, or were you talking about...
No, I'd like rural, because Johannesburg is very cosmopolitan and it's a major international city. And I think, in my experience, rural South Africa is quite different. And the Karoo is unique as well. Yep. So...
My first day in the Karoo was a bit arduous. I didn't bring enough water with me for the excursion.
It is a desert, you know.
Yeah, and I should have been better prepared. My fault. Yeah. And I was in the field, I think, 4 days before I found the first fossil. Everybody else with me.
Is that long or short period of time?
Well, one of the other experts had an unfortunate previous excursion where he went 12 days without finding anything. Okay. And he's about to get a doctorate. So so I don't feel. But this morning, was it this morning? I'm sorry, no, yesterday. Yesterday I was feeling pretty frustrated that I hadn't found anything. I'm the only guy left that hadn't found anything. Oh, and what's worse, I found stuff that wasn't real. I found so many things I thought were bones. I found something I thought was a bivalve, and for a moment...
So you made a mistake?
For a moment, I glanced upon a rock that I'm like, that's a skull, and realized a moment later, no, that's too good to be true.
Okay.
That looks exactly like the exact thing that we're looking for, and so that's probably not it. And sure enough, I call somebody else over, and nope, that's not it.
That's not it. Okay, so arduous?
Yes.
Thirsty?
Yeah. The water is salted here, which is...
Brackish?
Yeah, which is
brackish?
A little bit surprising. So it doesn't matter how much you drink, you're still thirsty.
That's why you drink beer.
Which doesn't really help, because alcohol is also dehydrating. So I found myself carrying like 5.5 liters with me.
Well, I have some bottled water from Worcester tap water. Worcester is about 300 kilometers towards Cape Town, and please come and visit. The water is really good, not brackish at all. Pure mountain water. So, okay, we have arduous, we have thirsty, and then one more word?
Well, you said it's unique. Okay, so on the surface, at a glance, your desert looked exactly like the place where I was born.
That's surprising.
It really does. I mean, so when they drove me out here, and I'm like, I'm home. The difference is that we actually have more, I think, large dangerous animals in the area than you do, which is weird, because we still have mountain lions where you no longer have lions.
Yes, well, not here.
Yeah.
Not free roaming, at least.
And we still have bears where you don't, you know.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, and I did run across a horned adder yesterday.
Really?
It was adorable. It was a baby. It's about half as long as my foot, and I brought these huge armor-plated motorcycle boots
Just in case.
just in case of snake bite, because you can't bite through steel plates.
Safety first. Safety first.
I've lived in the Arizona desert. I knew people who used to wrap these bits of like Kevlar and stuff around their leg if they're out in the field all day, because there are so many rattlesnakes. It's amazing how many rattlesnakes you can have in one area. And you'll never know, because most of the time
because they don't rattle to warn you.
They don't always rattle. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be disturbing them before they make a note. You just step right over them, or if you step on them, then they don't bother to rattle. They just bite. So yeah, you have to be very careful about that. And I know that your snakes are not as courteous as ours, so they don't rattle.
They're very hospitable, though.
Yeah, that little horned adder didn't.
See, there you go.
Yeah, I actually stopped him with my boot to try to get my camera out, but I realized that I couldn't pick him up.
I wouldn't advise that. Okay.
But what I did see that didn't impress me was I was on top of a hill and I was looking at the people in our party, and I saw something running across a good distance behind them, like right behind them,
Yes.
at high speed, and I couldn't figure out what those were. If this were, North America 100 years ago, I would have said those were wolves. Eventually, I figured out by descriptions, people, that what I was looking at was baboons. I never would have thought that baboons were that big, or that they were that fast.
Yes.
And so now I know that I can't fight them, and I can't outrun them. And they told me you can only bluff them once.
They're very smart. They are really, really smart. Respond to the following. Evolution is just a theory.
Okay, this is the people who don't care about accuracy, they just want confidence. And they don't like that science treats everything that we know to be true as if it were just speculation, when religion treats everything that is just speculation as if it's something we know to be true. It's a complete reversal of thought. So everything we know to be true is called a theory. It is a fact.
Could you just repeat that? A theory? So a theory is not something that we just guess or believe?
Atomic theory, right, is the theory that... a theory is a body of knowledge that includes all the facts and hypotheses and natural laws within a given field of study.
So are you telling me that a theory is not the same as when I say... I think that my shoes are too big because they chafe me? Is that...
That might be a hypothesis if you could test it.
Okay.
So most of the religious, when religious people talk about what they want to call a theory, they just want to call it a blind guess. And it doesn't qualify as an hypothesis until it is testable. And in a sense, although this is not technically accurate from a scientific perspective, it is accurate to say that a theory is a hypothesis that has been sufficiently proven because it's been tested consistently, passing those tests. It's been tried and tested and has withstood this continuous battery for such a time that it becomes the point where it's passed every test and it has been supported by all of the discoveries and all of the experimentation and everything, and it's been so well bolstered that it's become perverse to question it anymore.
Something like the germ theory of disease, for example?
Exactly.
Or that the earth is round and...
When I say that it's not technically correct, I mean in the verbiage that science uses. You can't ever say that something has been proven in the positive sense. But if you define proof as many courtrooms do, as an overwhelming preponderance of evidence beyond reasonable doubt, then it does qualify. That once a hypothesis has been tried and tested so much that it has been effectively proven by those criteria, then it graduates to the level of theory.
So my hypotheses are not theories?
The theory, once again, is a body of knowledge. So you have to be able
and
to...
And if I know it to be true...
Well, if you can't verify the accuracy of your claims to any degree at all, by any means whatsoever, then you don't actually know what you merely believe.
Okay, so I suppose something's I just have to accept and deal with it whether I like it or not?
I don't even go that far. I am compelled to accept that I am wrong when I am wrong. So you can clearly prove some things wrong. The rule is you're not allowed to ever prove anything right. Because the moment you start proving it right, now you've closed your mind to the opportunities.
Well, that is something I've never thought about. And I regard myself as a skeptic and a critical thinker. So I have something to think about. Just a fun question quickly before we move on to the next more sciencey question. Have you picked up any Afrikaans words?
I have not even heard Afrikaans until this week.
Rarig?
Bless you.
What about that pizza we just had?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Kaalgat meisie. En dis nie my naam nie. Dit is hierdie kafee se naam. So net FYI, so Kaalgat meisie, can you say that for us? It's
Kaalgat meisie.
Try again. Kaalgat meisie.
Okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm on the phone with room service. Kaalgat meisie.
That's good. What? 78%. Maybe 78%. All right. What are the most common misconceptions that you find people have about evolution?
Well, there's a concentrated effort to mislead people. So the creationist movement does not want people to understand what evolution is, so they lie about what it is to make up things that it's not. And one of them, and I think the biggest one, is the idea that evolution requires something to beget some other fundamentally different thing. So they always want to say
The
that...
crocodile?
Exactly. So you're supposed to have a crocodile give birth to a crocodile, however that's supposed to happen, I guess. Or what I've heard is that a pine tree should give birth to an elephant or to, something along those lines. But the idea is that what evolution is it's descent with inherent modification. And by that summary definition, and it's a genetic modification, obviously, but by that definition, every new breed or species that ever evolved was just a modified version of whatever its ancestors were. So there is never a point, ever, in evolutionary history where one thing ever produced another fundamentally or completely different kind of thing. There's no such thing as kinds, which is the second one. Taxonomy works as such that you take any, you can take any two organisms.
Sorry, Aron, can you just explain the principle or the concept of taxonomy?
It's a classification of life forms. If you keep it to two species, you can always find differences between them. As a matter of fact, if you're looking only for differences, you can find differences between you and me. You can find differences. You can always find differences between any two individuals of anything, so you can set one man apart from everybody else. But if you look at their similarities instead, then you come to a completely different conclusion, go another way. Now, what I find interesting is instead of finding the difference or comparing two different species, let's compare three. So two of them are always going to be more similar than the third. There's always going to be that game that they do on the children's shows. One of these things is not like the other, right? And so we know that like a dog, a horse, and a cow.
Dog, horse, cow. Dog.
All three are mammals. Two of them have hooves.
The other one, so dog is the odd one.
Dog is the odd one out. So in taxonomy, what you just play that game. And so give any three organisms, dog, parrot, banana. Two of them are animals, one of them is a plant. Follow this simple rule and you can classify everything. And there's never a time in human evolutionary ancestry when we stopped being what our parents were. We may create a new subclass that our parents or our ancestors don't belong to, but we still belong to every parent taxon that they did.
It's complicated.
Well, yeah, when you become a primate, you don't stop being a mammal.
That's right.
When you become a mammal, you don't stop being a vertebrate. So we are still vertebrates. We are still mammals.
Yes.
We are still primates.
Yes.
So when people say, I ain't related to no monkey, I didn't come from no monkey.
Well, I'm not related to any monkey.
Right. Well,
Maybe a
except
baboon because they're smart.
the problem is that we're still monkeys now.
I don't feel like one though.
Do you?
Well,
You know
I
what
don't
the
know
technical
what
definition-
I don't know what monkeys feel like, so I suppose I can't really say that.
The
can
funny
I?
thing is if you categorize, if you find out what the classification is for all monkeys, let's say you gather every species of monkey that is universally accepted as a monkey, and you're not making special exceptions for certain ones, just as everything that is universally accepted, and you find out what traits do they all have in common. And if you have something that is collective of all of them, then you can decide whether some other addition belongs there or not. But the thing is, when you describe a mammal, right, or let's go, an animal describes us, right? We're a multicellular organism with an internal digestive tract. We're animals. That's what the definition is. To skip a whole bunch of different categories, a vertebrate is an animal with a backbone. We have backbones, so we're vertebrates,
Okay.
right? A mammal is a vertebrate animal that has mammary glands, right, and other specific things. And then we get into primate. You describe every primate there is by the criteria that they all have in common. You describe people. When you describe monkeys, by the characteristics shared by all monkeys, right? Opposable thumbs, forward-facing binocular eyes, these ears, and 2 pectoral mammae. No mammae on the abdomen, just up here. You're describing people. You describe all monkeys, but you also describe people. If you make that more specific so that you're only talking about old world monkeys, you describe people again. Because now you're talking about fingernails and downward pointing nostrils. This is the original set that you had for monkeys. Now you're going to add a criteria.
Yes.
Downward pointing nostrils, fingernails, and then the certain number of cuspids that we have that matches old world monkeys. You add more specifics. Now we got fingerprints, specific type of molars that we have. These are the diagnostic characteristics of apes. Well, I didn't come from ape. We're so much different than ape. No, we are apes. It's not that we're similar to apes. We are apes.
And it's not an insult.
It's not an insult. It's just when you describe what is the criteria that describes what an ape is, you describe people. When you get more specific than that, and talk about only the great apes, you describe people again. Now, if you describe the lesser apes, now you start getting into differences. At any point, you could branch off in a different direction. You can share the commonality that we have, and then start talking about, like, say, New World monkeys as opposed to Old World monkeys. And now there's some differences.
Yes.
For that collective than what we have. But as long as you stay in our line, you describe people all the way up.
Right, Aron, you've explained to us the misconceptions about evolution. You have stated to me that it's no insult to say that my granddaddy way back was a monkey, that I am in fact still a monkey. Not a baboon though, because baboons are from a different line.
Right.
Right?
So yeah, when we say that you're a mammal, no one is offended by the fact that they're a mammal. That you're a warm-blooded animal with mammary glands and hair. Right? Everybody accepts those criteria.
Grey hair.
Same with vertebrate, right?
Yes.
What is vertebrate?
I'm okay with that.
It's not an insult to say these things. Now, does that mean that you are an elephant who is also a vertebrate and a mammal?
No.
Of course not. It's because you get to that point, and then you have all these different options within that subset, and then within the next clade you have more, only in our lineage. So as I said, when you're animal, and then you're vertebrate, and then you're primate, which makes you separate from the elephants. And then within primates, does that mean that you're a lemur? Or does that mean no, because we're monkeys, and monkeys are not lemurs, or lemurs are not monkeys? That sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's groups within groups within groups, and it's maybe hard for some people to understand how to because they want to imagine that you stop being one thing to become the other, and that doesn't have to be.
But am I right if I say it's analogous to I am a female, but I'm also white, but I'm also an African because I was born in Africa, and I'm also what else? I'm many things, but I'm also just one thing. Depending, is it sort of analogous to that?
I understand where you're going with this because I'm white and I'm an American, and technically a Native American is not white.
Okay.
So I understand the same discrepancy there,
Yes.
but we understand how the classification works. And in the United States, the idea was that anybody that comes to America can become an American citizen and become American.
Yes.
And that was the goal. And I'm afraid we've lost track of that. We were supposed to be the refuge that other people could go to when their own governments and their own systems have collapsed. When you are judged for your caste, or when you are considered haram by the local religion, whatever, you could escape to a country where it didn't matter what your ethnicity was or what your ancestral religion was. It suddenly became a meritocracy. Can you make it? What can you do? That's what it was supposed to be in my country, and I'm afraid we've strayed.
Well, let's see what happens. Fortunately, South Africa, I think, is moving in the right direction since
I think it is.
94. Because I think, and you might correct me on that because you're an outsider and you see things from a different perspective, but I think as South Africans, I'm not talking about the outliers and the extremists on both sides of the parameter. I think most South Africans celebrate our common humanity, regardless of the external appearance of our pigmentation or the structure of our hair. And I think, to me, we are definitely moving in the right, because that's where we should go, to celebrate our common humanity.
Well, I agree that where you once had, in my country also, once had laws that restrict people based on their gender or their ethnicity. And other countries certainly have plenty of laws restricting people based on their ancestral religion.
Yes.
And they have laws forbidding you from ever moving from that religion. Right? So I understand. I would think that in that respect, my country has been, for a while, moving in the right direction too, although I think we've drunkenly stumbled and face-planted recently.
I won't comment.
I would like to think that we're either going to find the difficult. When you do that, when you fall and you're on your face, it's a much more difficult thing to get back up on your feet than it is to roll over and die. And I'm hoping.
Ask South Africans, we know, but I think we're doing a good job. I have hope. Why is it important that everybody knows about evolution and then more general science and the scientific method?
Well, if we talk about human rights, do you have a right to be lied to?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I would think I have a right to be lied to.
I would think that you have a right to believe whatever you want to believe, but you should know what the options are. You should know. Okay, here's the mainstream scientific consensus, and here's the whack jobs that are trying to sell something else, at your expense. And we don't even have to sell it like this. Okay, here's the evidence behind this, and here's the complete dearth of anything supporting that, and go from there. What I would like to see is that teachers not go into a classroom and lie to their students by selling them pseudoscience, nonsense. Things like, well, evolution can't be true because we've never seen one thing turn into another fundamentally different thing. It's a lie to even represent evolution that way. That's a straw man fallacy. People need to understand that logical fallacies are not evidence. People need to understand what truth is and then know what the truth is. And then they can decide whether they want to reject that or not. If you want to go and believe that you are the secret princess of some other cosmos, you're welcome to do that.
So am I not Hypatia reincarnated?
And sadly, we have a lot of people that seem to be genetically inclined toward accepting authoritarianism, which disturbs me. There are some people who have a preference to be told don't want to question it, and who are not curious. And I don't understand that perspective. I want to improve my understanding. I don't want to assume that I already know and that everything I know is accurate, because I know everything I know can't be accurate. And the only way to improve your understanding is to seek out the flaws in your current perception and correct them. And so you have to have first a way to find what things you currently hold that are incorrect. How do you know whether one of your opinions is wrong, or whether the information you were given has some flaw in it somewhere? It doesn't have to be dichotomous, and everybody should worry about you thinking all the way this or all the way that.
Dichotomous? Sorry, this is the teacher in me. My kids will get a total
binary.
It's
either
this or that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, life is not that simple. That's my experience. So there are very few examples where things are binary, and it's often very difficult to find out how things are. And when they are binary, it's not so easy to find which one's right.
The teacher in me would also want to point out what a bell curve is.
Yes.
So that there are very few people who are all the way on this side or all the way on this side, because the bell curve is shaped like this, and most of us
in the average
are somewhere down in here.
Yes.
And we may be very close we may be on the right or on the left, but we're very close together on most things. It's virtually impossible to be all the way.
Absolutely.
But so many people think in terms of binary, that you are either this.
Because it's easier.
And if you're on the left, well, that means you're all the way on the extreme radical left, because you can't be just, left-leaning.
my hypothesis is we do that because it's easier.
It is.
It's easier, and it takes much less effort. And I think evolutionary, we have been, I don't want to use the word designed, but when you're in a struggle for survival, the less energy consuming option is most of the time the safer one. But we live in a world where we don't need to do that anymore. We have time, we have energy, we have technology, we have knowledge. We can explore the averages of the bell curve, and we can accept that.
I also see evolution as being deterministic, because viewing the way a population works, given certain conditions of the dynamics, then you're going to favor one objective over another, certain conditions. It's incidental, it's not deliberate, but it does determine the outcome.
Yes.
If the climate gets colder, you're going to weed out those things that can't survive in the cold, and you're going to favor those things that can.
But there's no mind behind it, is there?
No, it's not. It's just, it's. I don't want to say random, because random isn't what it is. I mean, the only thing that's random.
I love that. Random isn't what it is.
Random is just like a roll of the dice on an individual. But when we're talking about emergence,
in a population.
Yeah, when we're talking about evolution, we're talking about emergence, and so if every individual rolls those dice, then we see the deterministic factor come in, because if the environment is shifting this way, and certain organisms are better suited for that, then those are the ones that are going to proceed, and then these others that went the wrong way are going to fail out. And it's just a matter of population mechanics, is another way to put it.
Okay.
But that environment is different in different areas, and so what works in one place may not work in another so well. And most of evolution doesn't even have natural selection applied to it. It really doesn't. So all evolution does is create diversity. It's a theory of biodiversity. So variations will thrive in certain areas given certain conditions where, and it doesn't have to be an act of survival to do that. Within one population, you can have individuals that have this trait, and maybe they use that for their sexual display, or maybe they just have a different song, like in birds, they'll have a different song or a different dance or a different display that they do for the female, something like that. It doesn't have anything at all to do with survival, and it doesn't matter which one you choose. So they can all work, and it's all fine. And what that ends up with is, without anything having to die for having made the wrong choice, you end up with 50 different varieties. And you know what everybody else is going, look at all these wonderful varieties. Isn't it wonderful that we have this variety?